Hello, a very good evening. Welcome to tonight's edition of the News Focus, live and direct from our studios. I want to say a big thank you for joining us. It's been your most authoritative current affairs program that brings you the major stories that have hit us throughout the day, from the very hour of the day to the 10th hour, that the 22nd, that the 21 GMT. Going from now to 22. That is an hour of a story packed, insightful discussions that we're going to have in tonight's edition of the News Focus. There's a lot that has happened today. A lot. A lot has happened. But the simple questions we keep asking, very simple question, I keep asking, and I believe that it's also eating you up as a Ghanaian. You've also been asking same questions, wondering what is going on. You've also been asking similar questions and what is going on. And we're going to digest some of the matters that has come up today. And it's going to be a lot of stories that we need to touch on. And based on that, I want you to also pick your phones, pick your tablets, and be part of today's edition of the News Focus. You can give us your input on 0537158638 via WhatsApp and via SMS. That is what we're going to look at. So I want to say a very good evening and welcome to the News Focus, coming to you from the MBN TV. I am El Samuels. Tonight, we'll bring you the major stories shaping Ghana. But we are doing something a little different tonight. Tonight, the input will come from you. We're going to depend on you to do what we have to do. That is why I said the phone numbers are on the screen. You pick it, you send us your message, and then we will gladly read it. Now, tonight we have looked at the numbers, the politics, and then the questions. But beyond the political argument, one thing should remain constant. And that is, we'll bring you some excerpts of things that has gone on throughout the day. And that is what I call when the elephant fights what's up. Tonight, Ghana is having another difficult conversation about money, accountability, and trust. The minority is demanding parliamentary scrutiny into a reported losses linked to the Bank of Ghana's gold purchasing operations. With Gold Board at the center of the controversy. But Gold Board says the picture being painted by the minority is wrong. Its chief executive, Sammy Gyamfi, says Gold Board recorded a 5.4 billion surplus in 2025, not the losses being alleged, and has challenged the minority to invite him to Parliament to answer questions. So tonight, we are not simply asking who is right. That is not what we are here for. We are asking the bigger question: who should Ghanaians trust when billions of cedis are at stake? Who should Ghanaians trust? Should we trust the government explanation? Should we trust the opposition's allegations? Or should Parliament step in and independently establish the facts? And there is more. The Ghana Journalists Association is also preparing a nationwide investigations into the Galamsey crisis to establish what is actually happening on the grounds and assess the response to illegal mining. And nearly 2 million young Ghanaians are also being reported as neither unemployed, education, nor training. A sobering reminder that behind the economic statistics are millions of young people asking what their future holds. And today, government announced another 10.82 billion Ghana cedis payment to the DDEP bondholders, taking a reported payment since 2025 to 41.36 billion Ghana cedis. So tonight, we are putting the issues under microscope. Gold board, galamsey, jobs, debt, but most importantly, your voice. Because tonight on News Focus, we don't just tell what you want. Tonight on News Focus, we don't just tell you what happened. We ask what you think should happen next. Stay with us. This is News Focus, and I am L. Samuel. That is a question that we're going to roll out for ourselves tonight in big conversation. Please don't go away. Just stick and stay with us as we begin to unravel the issues one after the other. It's the 19th day of August 2026. And we're going to roll up. We're going to bring you some more tips. And with the preambles I've given you, I believe that you begin to pick your phones, you begin to write your questions, you begin to also give us the answers that needs to be given. Exactly so, that is what we are going to do tonight. So let's begin with the issues dominating the political and economic conversation tonight. Gold board. The minorities are alleging that the institution has been at the center of a massive financial losses, with figures running into billions of Ghana cedis. But Gold Board and its defendants strongly dispute that interpretation. So what exactly is behind the numbers? Where did the money go? That's a question. And we are dealing with an actual loss or a cost arising from the Gold for Reserve program. We begin with the claims. Let's roll the tape. Rolling the tape, Gold Board losses explained. The 214 million mystery. Where did Ghana gold money go? And this is one of the story, but the allegation of much greater. The minority has put much weight figures on the political debate, alleging that 22 billion was from the Gold Board operation. So let's watch our rollout our first tape.
Somewhere around October of 2025, just about 2 or 3 months after the death of the 8 men, when government terminated licenses of small-scale miners in this country, that was when Gold Board has also come into play. And that was when government needed to buy more gold to finance what he termed as the forest trade in this country. Even as you and I, where were they going to get it from? And you know perfectly well that as we speak now, small-scale mining activities has overtaken, small-scale mining gold has overtaken large-scale mining gold in terms of purchases and exports in this country. So where are we getting it from? Those who have the licenses, you took 278 of them off. Those individuals, where do you think they were going to? They were now going to mine illegally. Now it has gotten to a stage that even Nananum had to come in and be placing curses on people who are doing small-scale mining activities in this country. We've seen that in Atroni. We've seen some in Ekonongo. And even when you listen to the account of the Atroni chiefs, it's harrowing, where they tell you that people are well armed and protecting these illegal small-scale miners in the forest. Evans, it is sad. Erasmus, let me share with you. Let me share in your sorrows and in the person that was beaten. And Erasmus, it tells you that the people who are engaged in the activities now are emboldened because, first and foremost, they have people primarily in power backing them. You would not have heard what is happening in Oda happening. You would not have heard what is happening in Adanse Asokwa happening, where behind Agenda 111, a facility that is meant to solve our health problems, it is being mined uncontrollably and people are looking at it. Go to Impoho, in front of a police station, People are mining. So it obviously tells you that the threat that people are bringing, because they have persons backing them, that is why now it is open and people are attacking people. Erasmus, it is sad. It is sad. Evans, let me tell you, if we are not bold the same way we were bold 2 years ago, open by this time, as this discussion would have been ongoing, you would have had bottles of water on your table, showing it to the Ghanaian populace how polluted the water bodies are. You told us from the onset that when you went to Ghana Water, just to have the turbidity report, they told you they cannot give it to you. It tells you that first and foremost, it has so been polluted that they cannot even share that public document to you and I. And there is no improvement in our forest. It's because the government will not want to put out there, even they don't want to put out there what the real state of our forest is.
So that is one side of the story. But the allegation go much further. The Gold Board transition. The Galamsey fight, as we rolled up the tapes. The Gold Board losses explain 214 million mixture. Where did Ghana's gold money go? And that is one side of the story. But the allegation goes much faster. The minority has put much bigger weight into the political debates, alleging that 22 billion loss from the Gold Board operations. Now let's hear, as we roll up this tape, that the Gold Board under fire, minority alleges 22 billion loss from the operations. A 22 million loss is a stagnant figure, 22 billion. And naturally, it raises another question. If such a loss has occurred, who should be held accountable? The minority parliamentary leader, Les Anafedo Markin, has been particularly forceful in making that argument. We rolled our second tape.
That led to President Mahama's NDC then at chapter 4.3 of their manifesto, which is pages 77 to 80. They made 18 promises on Galamsey. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 18 promises on Galamsey. On top of them was calling for a state of emergency. On top of them. And they made so much noise. There was so much demonstration, so many demonstrations on the street of this country, calling on government to call for a state of emergency. I thought, indeed, that when President Mahama assumes power, the first thing he would do was to call for the state of emergency. The first thing President Mahama did was to appoint Minister Amabua, who was then a huge critic of this. In fact, he professed the state of emergency. He described this on Sunday, one hot Sunday. He professed the solution of state of emergency. Do you know the interesting thing? When he became a minister responsible for lands and natural resources, on another hot Sunday afternoon, he called for press conference. He decided to now turn himself to an actor and cried. And throughout the press conference, he did only one thing: cancel the license of Akunta mining. He cried about Galamsey, thinking that he was going to solve it. My brother, Galamsey has taken 8 gallant men of this country who were on their way to solve this. And today, you see the video that was playing about Obuasi. It was an airstrip area. The said helicopter should have landed. And they have died. 8 people. 8 people. Look at it. This is Obuasi. Look at it, and you have the Obuasi West vice chairman of the NDC calling the bluff of this government and security agencies that if they dare, they should come and arrest him on that. You stated it over here, and that is what we are facing. My brother, after the incident of having 8 gallant men of this country, including 2 cabinet ministers, dying due to Galamsey, we had Minister Ablakwa of Foreign Affairs now stating that the government is going to wage a strong war against Galamsey. He said all these things, and my brother, it was just fracadam. And I'll tell you why. It was scam and scandalous for him to even make that statement. In somewhere last year, September, when the president met the press, the president told us that He, as the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces and also the chairman of the National Security Council, he is very much aware that his own party people are deeply involved in Galamsey. And you find the chairman of the National Security Council telling you this and going to sit astray. Why would we all not sit in this country to have
what
the attorney general?
That he will not be surprised.
He will not. What is he? Are we not seeing Yamin and Abanga, who serves as his national executive members, deeply involved in Galamsey? And
are they promises or their rhetoric? The big question is that the gold board losses keep continuing coming up as we fight in this menace. I call it one of the things that has hit us as a nation. So that is the question and the heart of this story. What happened to the figures? But before we describe any figure as a loss, we have to establish exactly what the figure represents, who incurred the cost, what the underlying transaction was. And that distinction is important because a cost is not necessarily the same thing as a loss. Now, the political argument have moved far beyond the 214 million Ghana cedis, with the minority alleging losses running into 22 billion. Now, the question is, let's hear the argument, that side of the argument, as we roll down next tape.
Imagine a country sitting on a throne of gold. Yet for decades, its currency scrambled for stability, tethered to the whims of the US dollar. It's a paradox as old as modern economics, the land of gold, without gold in its own vaults. Imagine waking up to find that the very program designed to save your country's economy has been flagged for losing nearly $250 million in just 9 months. This isn't a story about mining. It's a story about a magic trick in the financial books, where gold bars enter a vault and millions of dollars seemingly vanish into thin air. The IMF has sounded the alarm. The politicians are trading insults, and the average Ghanaian is left asking one simple question. If we have the gold, why are we recording a loss? Welcome to the saga of the gold bod. To understand the missing millions, we first have to meet the new boss. For decades, Ghana exported its gold almost entirely in raw form, letting foreign refineries skim off the cream. But in the 2020s, the government decided to change the script. Enter the Ghana Gold Board. Think of the gold bod as the middleman with muscle. Established to replace the role of the PMMC in this specific sector, the gold bod was given a mandate that sounds simple but is incredibly difficult. Capture the gold before it leaves. Before the gold bod, small-scale miners, the Galamsey operators, and the licensed small concessions sold their gold to whoever had the cash. Often that meant smugglers or foreign agents paying top dollar. The gold bod was created to intervene. Their job? Buy that gold for the state. The logic was patriotic. Let's keep our gold in our own vaults. This gave birth to the Gold for Reserve program. The idea was to build a fortress of bullion at the Bank of Ghana to back the cedi. If the cedi started crashing, the bank could point to the gold and say, relax, we're good for it. But the gold bod didn't just want to be a saver. It wanted to be a player. And that is where the trouble began. Now things get a little devastatingly complicated because the government didn't just launch one program. They launched 2. And if you mix them up, you miss the picture. Let's break them down. First, there is gold for oil. Picture this. It's 2022. The cedi is in freefall. Oil prices are skyrocketing. Ghana needs gas, oil, and diesel, but we don't have enough US dollars to pay for it. So the government gets creative. Instead of looking for dollars, they say, we have gold. You want gold? Let's swap. Under Gold for Oil, the state buys gold in cedis, ships it out, and uses the proceeds specifically to pay for fuel imports. It's a survival mechanism, a barter system for the modern age. Then, there is the Gold for Reserve program. This is different. This is the savings account. Under this program, the gold bod buys gold from local miners and hands it over to the Bank of Ghana. The bank doesn't sell it to buy oil. It locks it away or sells some on the international market for dollars. It becomes part of the nation's gross international reserves. It sits there, looking pretty and making the country's balance sheet look strong. So why the comparison? Because the Gold for Oil program is like using your paycheck to buy groceries. It's gone, but you're fed. The Gold for Reserve program is like putting cash under your mattress. If you put money under your mattress, and check it a year later to find less than you put in, you have a serious problem. And that is exactly what the IMF says just happened. Fast forward to late 2025. The International Monetary Fund, the global financial watchdog that Ghana is currently answering to, releases a report. And in the fine print, there is a number that makes everyone gasp. The report flags a loss of approximately $214 million attributed to the bank.
All right, so we're bringing you some the mystery behind the gold for reserve and the gold for oil. And the gold board controversy has now moved into another critical area, the interpretation of the IMF findings. The minority says the IMF report raises serious questions about gold board operations and the financial implications for the country. But Gold Board Chief Executive Sammy Gyamfi strongly disagree with that interpretation. He says the minority is drawing conclusion from the IMF report that the report itself does not support. So what exactly does the IMF say, and who is interpreting it correctly? Let's hear Sammy Gyamfi's response. Government Accountability Series, Sammy Gyamfi takes minority in Parliament over the IMF reports.
Fact. And today, to settle this matter once and for all, I brought to this auditorium a copy of the annual report and financial statements of the Gold Board, prepared and published by the Auditor General, not Sammy Gyamfi and the Gold Board. We don't audit ourselves. Now, if you check page 12 of this report, you will see that the Gold Board on its own, from its own operations, generated total revenue of close to 1 billion Ghana cedis and kept expenditure just around 109 million Ghana cedis. And so that is what we mean by operational profit or surplus of 907 million. It means that if you took all the revenue we generated as an organization and you deducted our expenditure from it, we had 907 million left. Now, because in the 2025 budget statement, government budgeted a revolving seed capital as its equity for the newly established Gold Board of 4.5 billion Ghana cedis, which monies hit our accounts on or about 30th of December 2025. Those funds had to be added to the revenue of the Gold Board because they were not encumbered, they were not depleted, they were not dissipated. And that is why the overall surplus is 5.4 billion. And this reporting was done by the Auditor General under what is known as IPSAS guidelines. And the chartered accountants and auditors understand this very well. So we brought 50 copies and we are going to distribute to you the audited financials of the Gold Board for 2025 as prepared and published by the Auditor General of Ghana, which puts to rest the false claim that the Gold Board has been making losses. Now, ladies and gentlemen, unsurprisingly, Afenyo-Markin and his followers have consciously chosen to disregard the Auditor General's confirmation that Gold Board did not record an operational loss. They now claim that the Auditor General did not have access to the full picture concerning the operations of the Gold Board. This position, ladies and gentlemen, betrays either a crass lack of understanding of how an external audit is conducted or a deliberate determination to undermine yet another independent state institution, independent constitutional body, when its findings do not suit their mischievous narratives. I invite you, the media, you who are the fourth estate of the realm, to check the veracity of this claim with the Auditor General, and you will come to the conclusion that officials of the Auditor General were given unhindered access to all relevant information in the conduct of their audit of the 2025 financials of the Ghana Gold Board. All documents requested by them were supplied, and all queries raised by them in their management letter were satisfactorily answered. This is why not a single, and I repeat, not a single adverse audit finding was made by the Auditor General in its 2025 audited report on the Gold Board, not on imaginary or hallucinatory losses, not on procurement breaches or breaches of the Public Financial Management Act. Not a single adverse finding in the report of the Auditor General on accounts for the year 2025. The media, I humbly submit, must not condone and entertain the deliberate propagation of lies in the face of glaring.
And that's a strong rebuttal from Sammy Gyamfi, the CEO of Gold Board. But this brings us to another important point in the entire controversy. When two sides interpret the same IMF findings differently, where does the truth lie? Is the minority presenting the IMF's concerns accurately? Is Gold Board justifying the rejection, the opposition's interpretation? Or is there information in the report that requires further clarification? Because ultimately, this is not about who makes the loudest political argument. It is about what the evidence actually says. And that is the question we continue to examine tonight on the News Focus. Now, let's move to the other side of the pendulum. And the Gold Board controversy is getting even bigger, because the minority in Parliament is now alleging that the Gold Board has incurred losses of about 22 billion. Remember, this thing started 214 million. Now we are in 22 billion from its operation. A claim that, if established, would raise serious questions about the management of Ghana's gold resources and public finances. But this is an allegation, not an established fact. So what is the minority's basis for arriving at the 22 billion figure? What does it say? What does it say happened to the money? And what accountability does the minority believe should follow? Let's hear their case. Gold Board under fire. Minority alleges 22 billion losses from the operation.
By the fund's own numbers, the Bank of Ghana's equity stood at negative 93.8 billion cedis at the end of last year, negative 6.7% of GDP. Our central bank is technically bankrupt, therefore. And the single biggest driver of that collapse in the 2025 was gold operations, Gold Board. Gold Board's own domain, 22 billion cedis. That's equivalent of the 1.7 billion US dollars in 1 year alone. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let's call it what it is. These losses are not bad luck. You don't trade in gold and make losses. They are not a difficult market. They expose the crass incompetence of Gold Board's management and misaligned policy of the government. No serious institution loses this much money by accident. This is what happens when an untouchable few are handed the nation's gold with no one watching and no one willing to ask questions.
$22 billion Ghana cedis, and that is an extraordinary figure. And naturally, it raises one fundamental question. How was the figure arrived at? Is it an actual financial loss recorded by Gold Board? Is it a cost associated with the Gold for Reserves program? Or it is a calculation based on interpretation of the financial and IMF data? And that distinction matters. Because before Ghanaians conclude that 22 billion has been lost, we need to establish exactly what the figure represents. And Gold Board has a response to the minority claims. We'll get to hear them, but let's go for a break.
Yamakoba Edoba Pemsign Herbal range of products. Yesanso de biaba eya gan malames eno na yesiesia. Sa malaria na chiwo na sa wankasa wo se ya na fever atie so a. Edra ye kan forma o acha se kan agan range of products ne ho no ye agan malames yedra yedo tu malaria setata hwekra ede afiri ni paduanim eniti se wo tie yen na se ohododo wankasa eya na wodo wonu matu ontumi ndidi na sa ya na edura no pano ya wo sawo yade ebedura wia no atiesie ebedura nwumre no na sa ohododo wo a ko pharmacy shop na herbal shop na ebe wo no okwa akacha mo say o be test for malaria parasite no sa wo test na eba na ye positive a enhwe ba bia kwaje agai malames no na ye nom amanetu malaria sikra ede afri nipaduanim sa water de do na wankasa nipaduanim no wo say ya na wafre o feel feverish kona kwaje agai malames no nenom enebeboa etu malaria parasite na sikra ede afri nipaduanim ede ama so wonu wato na se wontumi didi wontumi nyebo wontumi ntaibo wontumi ndibo a eya agai malames no na wonom amanetu malaria ntidi yade na sikra afri nipaduanim ede ama hye so ma yen say akọ hospital ko teste anasa pharmacy ko teste se malaria mo wane wo mojanim ansana wafa agai malames no yenom amanetu malaria sikra ede afri nipaduanim woni bisa malaria ba so a eya na ma nipadua na kese eya na mo sori udua so na wa ye nofre ubewu na wuti edwa kakra na ahoyira ba so na nipaduanimu anyowo a kona kwaji agai malames no eka pemsign range of products ne ho we no ye de barbetu malaria fever sekra ede afri nipaduanim enu ti edra ye kan form se no de etu malaria sekra no eye agai malames no ye bobobi ye nunumbi ye numa kwapem se malaria sekra ebetu edi afri nipaduanim oni se malaria mo no mo ye mo bi obo ha adweye pa ena hwehwe so de ababetu dwa se malaria de ne yade a eku nipa bebre afibia eya na yebu ye ne aguso ye mpesa okra be firi wonsa enti ne ye ka cho se wo ho na wuti paawo nipadua no wanka se wo sa wodo na wona mo nya wuyi a Bora pharmacy shop na herbal shop ebe wo okwa also ba be test se malaria mo wane bia ba mo jani mu a o test we na ba positive a enhwe ba bia kope agai malames no eye malaria do tata hye a ye nom amana to sin akọ nipaduanim akwakotu emo wana sekra ede afi wo no mato ontumi endidi eye na wo awota ade wo ne nyina eye nsensioni a edi adanse se malaria mo wano aba nipaduanim se ntontuma kawo ene wanya malaria dia ene kwaji agai malames ne be neno ene ne malaria dura yesiesia eba beboa amanetu malaria na sekra ede afri nipaduanim enti se wo tie yen na wo de ne malaria na wako teste ni akato se malaria na chewa enhwe ba bia kwaji agai malames no ene na ye nom amanetu malaria na sekra ede afri ho ede ama obo se na wo no eta de na de bia wa ye moso edrawia ni pie kakra na se watie si eye o se yade ni wo na atu ayira na edra nwumra bo na wo pose cha kwara kwaji agai malames no eye senchani de abobo hu se eye malaria mo wa no e na aba ne paduanim eno ti hwe ba bia onye ko pharmacy shop ne testo na ne ba se eye malaria nko a mo wa no e na aba ne paduanim mu a na waji agai malames ne be e kan herbal products no ho onu ma beboa na etu malaria na sekra hye nso ma ye se Pemsign group of companies ye ni hospital bia ewo bebia a range of products no bibidro tatashe papa no edi aba no agai malames ne kan ho no nko a na sesi ano ya ewo herbal shop ene pharmacy shop tubo ra ho a ne malaria na waji agai malames no na wanom ebeboa na pam malaria bia edi afri nipaduanim ede amount chene so ye say abatan etumi enum adre bi sanso na nkwada wo munya enfie dumienu enso entumi enum wanya enfie dumienu na oto adre bi na malaria okotesti am ya ka kire wa ene obehia tire so woni baako anapa ewia ene enumre na wanom wadi free fie du so kwa obehia tire mienu anapa ewia enumre na wanom utomi so ye numbers na good tv ne so no obetumi afre ye na wo so question bi a wo ede fa ye adre ho no ye beje so na ye no edisa enkomo no ye ka se agai a baby a wo bia na waje se etso se
Welcome back from the quick break. And you're still live on the News Focus from our studios, the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate, Nwa at Dogono. But just before, the minority is not backing down. In fact, its criticism has become even more direct. The argument from the minority is this: if Gold Board has indeed incurred losses of 22 billion Ghana cedis in just 1 year, then the government must explain why individuals are being arrested and prosecuted over financial losses, whilst a much larger figure is being attributed to state institutions. That raises a broader question about consistency in accountability. Are the same standards being applied to everyone when public funds are involved? And importantly, is the 22 billion cedis figure itself accurate or properly understood? Alexander Finyo-Markins makes the minority case. The Gold Board has made 22 billion Ghana cedis loss in a year, yet you keep arresting others for financial loss. Let's take a listen to it.
2025 report. The IMF explained that losses arose from the trading activities, fees and exchange rate movement, and specifically called for greater transparency, governance and risk management around the Gold Board linked channel of the domestic gold purchase program. We were subsequently told that Gold Board itself had made no loss. However, Section 13 of IMF country report, as quoted supra, stated. The real question, therefore, is what did Ghana lose from the transaction? The IMF has now answered the question, which I've quoted supra, for the full year, an equivalent of 22 billion cedis. The Ghanaian taxpayer ultimately stands to lose on this. And now, for emphasis and further explanation, the accounting location of a loss does not change its economic reality. This is perhaps the most important point that we, the caucus, want to put across. If Gold Board was legally an agent of Bank of Ghana, there may be a technical accounting basis for recognizing the underlying trade losses at the Bank of Ghana rather than recording them as Gold Board's own corporate losses. But Bank of Ghana is not interested only in which ledger the loss entered. We must ask, who designed the arrangement? Who approved it? Who executed it? Who controlled the risk? And why safeguards failed to prevent losses of this magnitude? An accounting structure cannot be used as a shield against public accountability. If one state institution is responsible for buying, aggregating, assaying, and exporting gold, while another state institution supplies the capital.
But the minority's position is strongly a challenge by government side. Dr. Ayer says the MPP is being mischievous in its interpretation of the IMF's findings, arguing that the opposition is presenting the IMF's assessment in a way that creates misleading picture of Gold Board's financial performance. So we now have two competing interpretations of the same issue. The minority says the figures point to a massive loss. The government side says the interpretation is misleading. So what does the IMF findings actually say? And are the political actors presenting evidence fairly? Let's hear Dr. Ayer's response.
Launched in 2021, did we hear the minority asking questions about how discounts were arrived at? Which off-takers received the gold? What pricing indices were used to engage in this interaction? Now, where did they get this Damascus experience to ask these questions? Because the IMF report is clear that the whole agreement is at the behest of the Bank of Ghana. Look, this is page 4, and I'm reading it to you. It said, lessons learned from the Bank of Ghana's domestic gold purchase program. This selected issues paper addresses the legacy of the Bank of Ghana's domestic gold purchase program, which was announced in 2021. and mostly phased out by end of June 2026. This paper examines how the domestic good purchase program was instrumental in exporting $10.9 billion in artisanal gold in 2025 alone. The rapid expansion of domestic good purchase program coincided and arguably contributed to remarkable economic stability, but also some amount of losses. Look, it is on record that Gold Board took over the liabilities of PMMC. So before Gold Board came, the Bank of Ghana was already engaged in a domestic gold purchase program using PMMC as a buyer. In fact, your own colleague Philip Osebons wrote an RTI request to Bank of Ghana so that Bank of Ghana will give them a breakdown of it. This is the report from Bank of Ghana. You can read in 2024. In 2024, they made a loss of 5.6 billion Ghana cedis. When that loss was made, was it attributed to PMMC? Why didn't the minority hold at the time majority hold a press conference accusing PMMC of losses? So if PMMC, that was doing the same job as Gold Board is doing now, was not responsible for losses in 2024, why should Gold Board be responsible for losses in 2025, especially when the program that we are discussing is at the behest of Bank of Ghana, because they are the one that actually exports the gold?
So the back and forth is still on this bigger thing that is eating us, fighting us. The Galamsey is eating us. 1 year on, the debate over the Gold Board is no longer simply about political accusation. It is about the bigger questions of economic value. Has Gold Board strengthened Ghana's gold economy, improved foreign exchange management, delivered the tangible benefits to the country? Or are the cost and financial implications becoming a burden on the national purse? With government defending the program and opposition raising serious questions about the financial impact, Ghanaians need to know what the numbers actually tells us. Is Gold Board delivering an economic benefit, or is it bleeding the national purse? That's my question. Let's take a closer look at the Gold Board. 1 year on, Gold Board a year on economic benefits or bleeding the nation.
The loss of MFA, 22 billion Ghana cedis, is a result of the marriage between Gold Board and 22 billion. And yes, capital. It's as a result of the marriage between Gold Board and Bank of Ghana. If you come together to do an activity and there's a loss, why would one person go distance himself or itself and says that for me, I'm not part of the loss, you take it?
Yes.
So even in marriage, when we are dissolving the marriage, the property acquired during the pendency of the marriage is shared equitably between the parties. Property acquired during the subsistence of marriage, in dissolution, it is distributed equitably.
Yes.
The results as a result of activities by Gold Board. So for accounting purposes,
don't leave it to Gold Board.
I'm coming. So for accounting purposes, you don't find it in their books. You see, Mr. Mahama, President, and by extension, this.
So the question you ask yourself, where does this leave us? We have heard the allegations. We've heard the defense. We have heard competing interpretation of the IMS findings. One thing remains clear. Ghanaians need clarity on the numbers. Because whether we are talking about 214 million cedis or 22 billion cedis, transaction costs or reported surpluses, these are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They concern public resources and ultimately the Ghanaian taxpayer. And that is why the demand for transparency and independent scrutiny cannot simply be dismissed as politics. The question now is, what does the evidence actually establish? From Gold Board, we now will turn to national issues where the gap between the promises and results continue to raise questions. Galamsey. 053-715-8638 is the number you can also call us. We have just 5 minutes to do this phone in. And this one is from, I said, I am Sir P. Fresh, watching you live from Wassa Videos at the Stepping Stone School Complex. In fact, If you come to my area now, there are dangerous water pollution. One, smaller metal particles are seen in our water when tapped. Our body itches us whenever we have our bath. Oil is seen in the water when tapped. Our white colored rubber buckets changes its color whenever we fill it with water. In conclusion, galamsey has caused more harm than good. The earlier we fight this canker, the better for us. Good evening, Mr. Erasmus Osare. Very good evening to you, a fresh P. 0537158638 and numbers are also to me, a friend. Where do we stand as a people going forward? Also, obey to me, our friend Cecilia. 0537158638 and numbers. The back and forth is on from the two sides, and then we want to find solution. We've got just about 5 minutes to make our phone calls, and then we call it a night. You can also send your messages. If you can call us, just send the messages. Let's keep rolling up, and then we go our way for the evening. It's been a wonderful time being with you, rolling up all the issues that has come up on the 0537158638 and numbers. I'll be to me afraid. You admitted the loss. Now account for the 22 billion minority hit back at the Gold Board CEO. Police pick up carrying suspects crashed into a trotro on a KNUST campus, several injured. Police pick up carrying suspects crashes into trotro on a KNUST campus, several injured. GRA targets 310 billion Ghana citizen taxes revenue by 2028. Gold Ball losers and ready to face Parliament. Sammy Jemfi. Akwitia MP defends Gold Ball, says IMF report didn't blame it for loss. Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Your name, where reaching us live from?
My name is Dana.
Right, let's hear you in 60 seconds.
From Global is the losses to we need explanation. You cannot take us for granted.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. You can also join us in 60 seconds. Then we roll and someone else will come. 0537158638 is the numbers. 0537158638 is the numbers. NTBM is originally so number call. Hello, good evening. Ofra Norma. Okay, Ofra Norma, phone no, abafom 0537158638 is the numbers where you can also join us. I got just 2 minutes to make a call, and then after I go 0537158638 0537. We can't defend journalism credibility if journalists don't uphold professional standard. GJA. Ghana enters phase 2 of the IAEA nuclear power program. Lance Minister. Audit Service recovers 24.95 million Ghana cedis in unearned salaries, irregular payments. GACC. I will have. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My brother, your name, where reaching us live from?
Yeah, from a show.
All right, let's hear you in 60 seconds. Let's go.
Yeah. What I want to say is that there's no fight without smoke. IMF know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. There's something wrong at both board. So please, let's put pressure on them. The money is for Ghanaians. Never again.
All right.
Sammy Jemfi will try to defend anything. Whether he's right or wrong, he will talk. He doesn't want to keep quiet. The money is for us. Let's put pressure on them. Ghanaians, we are tired. They're fed up. May God bless you.
Right, amen, and God bless you too for calling us. I can do my one final call, and then we can say a good night to ourselves. We'll wave that hand of departure and say good night. 053-715-8638 is the number. You can also join us in 60 seconds, and we go. The back and forth, big question is being asked. All Ghanaians need. The question now is, what does this mean for us? Mr. Kano Krawe. Like somebody. Hello, good evening, my brother. Your name, where reaching us live from? Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, my brother. Your name, where reaching us live from?
I want to contribute to the program.
Yeah, we're listening to you. Tell us your name and then go ahead with your submissions.
Yeah, my name is Kwame, calling from Kaswa.
Right, Kwame Kaswa, let's go.
Okay. I want to know whether the 1.7 billion quoted in the IMF program, is it the minority has highlighted on it that it was losses. So I want the Sami Jenfi to come out to explain to us what the 1.7 billion is doing in that report. Let me highlight on it. Let me tell us whether it's a loss or it's a profit.
All right. Thank you so much for also joining us tonight. One more call. I'm going like that. I'll be done. Right. Oh, my time is also almost up. I got to pack my things before MCI people, Aqua and his team start chasing me out. And that brings us to the end of our gold board conversation tonight. We've heard the allegations, we've heard the defense, we've heard the competing interpretation of the figures and the IMF findings. But beyond the politics, one question remains. What does the evidence actually show? If there has been a loss, Ghanaians deserve to know how it happened, who is responsible, and what is being done about it. If the figures are being misinterpreted, then that too must be established clearly with facts, not political rhetoric. Because when billions of cedis are involved, accountability cannot be selective. The Ghanaian people deserve transparency, they deserve answers, and above all, they deserve the truth. From Gold Board, we now will turn another issue that has tested government for years, the fight against Galamsey. Are we really winning the battle to protect Ghana's forests and rivers? That is next on News Focus. Come by tomorrow. Have a good night.